A lot of our friends were like, we're not surprised you're doing this, but we're surprised of how you're going about it. And their surprise was also excitement and just, wow, that's a cool idea because one, we couldn't do it. And the fact that 3 cities in 15 months, that is not something a family of 5 would typically do. And so they were so supportive because they knew we've been wanting to move out west, especially. So they were excited for the journey for our family.
The sabbatical that Sittany Sheffert and her husband have designed for their family is very unique and has a very clear goal. They sold their house in a Chicago suburb and are taking 15 months to test out living in 3 other U.S. cities. At the end, they're going to sit down as a family and decide where to live. 2 other important factors. They do have 5 kids, ages 11, 9, 8, 3, and 8 months. Both parents are also running their own businesses. Sittany is the founder of Giving Artfully Kids, a program that engages kids in service-based craft projects to teach kindness, compassion, and empathy. In this interview, we talk about the logistics and emotions involved in an experiment like this, such as how the Shefferts ended up downsizing and deciding to homeschool. We also discuss the couple's intentions behind their leap, which include wanting a slower pace of life, to be stronger as a family, and to be closer to the outdoors. I'm so impressed with this family and their original, ambitious experiment. Enjoy the conversation. I'm Lisa Hoashi, and this is Leap Like Me, the show about the leaps people take to make the most of this amazing life. Hello, Sittany. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for letting me be part of your show.
Oh, it's really exciting to have you on. So you have one of the most unique sabbatical plans that I've ever heard of. Can you describe it for us?
Yes, I am. Well, a little bit about my family first is I am wife, mom of 5, and owner of an awesome dog. And we decided in July this year that we are going to take, I guess you say, a 15-month sabbatical with our family. And my husband and I both own our own businesses, so we decided that we wanted to explore 3 different cities with our kids in the United States and do our exploration and research to figure out where we want to live. So we just started our journey, and right now we are in Park City, Utah for 5 months. And then we're going to be exploring Austin, Texas, and Denver, Colorado. And at the end of our 15-month sabbatical, we're to come together as a family and decide where we want to plant our roots for our next 20 to 30 years.
So the real focus is really investigating these 3 locations. Can you tell us what was attractive to you about each of these cities?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So we moved from Chicago, which is a big city. My family is from there. For the past probably 5, 6 years, since my oldest was about 5 years old, we've been attracted to the mountains. And so we've been making trips to Colorado and Utah in the summers and the winters. And it was interesting. My family's in Chicago. That's where I grew up, and I love it there. But there was something about the mountains that I always wanted to come back. So I knew it would be hard to move, but something about just being in nature, my whole family was drawn to. So that's why Utah and Denver was really interesting to us. My husband, he owns a company in Austin, Texas. So he's been able to spend a lot of time there. I don't know much about it, but since we are doing this sabbatical, I felt like I need to be very open-minded and try it out. And everyone I've spoken to, they're always, Austin is really cool. You need to try it out. So I'm like, you know what? Since we're doing this, let's put Austin on the list too, and we can just try out and see how it is. It's our chance to investigate, to test, to also show the kids there's all these different great places that we can live.
So I just want to highlight some of these key points so we can really appreciate them. You guys are doing 3 cities in basically 1 year and 3 months. You have 5 kids. You're both entrepreneurs. And you are doing homeschooling for 3 of your kids. Is that right?
That is right. It sounds like a lot. And I mean, that was a big hesitation when we brought this up, because the big thing was with the kids. I was just wondering, like, you know what? Going to 3 different cities, pulling them out of school 3 different times could be tough on them. So my husband's like, you know what? Let's homeschool them. Let's challenge them. let them do more exploring because you could do so much in homeschooling in a finite amount of time. And part of the exploring is part of homeschooling. So I love taking on a challenge and I love challenging my kids. So I thought this would be a fun opportunity to try it out.
Yeah, you guys already sound like people with a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah.
What's your secret?
I think you have to be with 5 kids.
Yeah.
So, honestly, is just that we work great as a team and the communication is key in this whole adventure and just us being on the same page about everything. And so doing all that together has made this adventure possible. Otherwise, if it was just him wanting to do it or just me wanting to do it, it would not work at all.
So just to get to know you guys a little bit more, what do you feel like are some of the key strengths that each of you guys bring to that team?
So the strength, my husband, big vision, strategy. He's the one who came up with this initial idea. And when he first said it, I'm like, you are absolutely crazy. But then as I thought more about it, I'm like, this is really cool. You know what? I want to try this out. So he's got the big picture strategy wise, where I think I'm better with the details of kind of like the execution part of it. And so that's kind of like how everything has been kind of working here. So he came up with idea, kind of like the general game plan. I helped find the rental places that we're staying at, how we're going to homeschool our kids, and just the logistics of our day-to-day life, and even kind of socially, how we're going to be meeting more people in all these different areas, and just stuff like that.
I can see how that would be a really powerful team.
Yeah, thanks.
So you had mentioned to me before that when your husband had this big idea, you initially had quite a few hesitations.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Chicago and then I left for college and lived in Minnesota where my husband and I got married. But then once we had kids, my husband travels a lot for work. We wanted to be close to family so that I would have a good support system. So we moved back to Chicago in 2007 when I had my first son, who was only 6 months old. And just to kind of explain how involved I was with my family, I would have lunch with my dad every single Wednesday in Chinatown. And we started when I moved back to Chicago in 2007. Our last lunch was literally that Wednesday before we moved. And so we would invite my mom and my dad, my grandma over for barbecues. I see them a couple of times a week. So that was the hardest part of leaving. It was just my family was there. And then we've made such great friends, especially with once you have kids, you just get so involved in all their activities and that becomes kind of like your second family. So knowing that we're leaving my family, leaving close friends who are like our second family, and then just having our kids at the age they are, it could be tricky for them from a social standpoint of just pulling them out of school, taking them on an adventure and having them having to start all over again and meeting friends. Those were hesitations, but then instead of seeing the negative part of it, I'm like, this is a great opportunity for our whole family. And just changing the mindset of this adventure made it much more achievable and much more just desirable to do once I realized all the fun and incredible things that we could do.
And your background is Thai American. Do you feel like your cultural background added to those hesitations in any way or made this leap feel more difficult for you?
Absolutely. Just being Thai American, when I grew up, it was very rooted in the Thai culture where there's a large respect of being near family. Like I think about my parents' home when they were growing up in Thailand, it was 3 generations living in a household. So the idea of already being in Chicago, but then just pulling away, especially with 5 of their grandkids, it was very tough because growing up, I knew that part of the cultures was you stayed with family close by.
And how for yourself did you make peace or kind of be able to balance the decision of honoring your background and also wanting to create a life for you and your husband, your kids that was really right for you?
I think it's what you said. The second part is what really pushed me to make this decision and my husband too. It was just that, you know what? I was so focused on my extended family that I knew to really strengthen our family bond, to make our family even stronger, was I needed to focus on us, just my husband and I, our 5 kids, and our dog. And I knew that we could have a better life trying something different. And that's why finally, it was probably March of this year. I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's take this leap and let's just take our family on this journey. And you know what? The best part of it was if it didn't work out, we could go back to Chicago, but let's go explore and let's do this for us.
And in terms of that life in Chicago, what were some of the things that were not working for your family?
I felt like that we were involved in so many things. And I don't know, that's probably just part of having 5 kids, but I felt like I was rushing from place to place. My husband and I felt like we were always just passing each other, that we felt like we didn't really get to sit down and talk all the time about, it would be about kids, but we just didn't get to talk about us as a couple. And being in a big city, I just wanted to kind of slow things down a little bit for my kids and just be able to enjoy the present moment, not rushing them off. And then just being, well, I wanted a smaller, maybe a safer environment too. Crime was getting a little bit rough in Chicago, and I just felt like my kids were growing up a little too fast. So I thought this would be a great way just to kind of slow things down a little bit for us and just see a bigger world out there.
And just to orient us, how big is Park City?
That's actually part of one of our homework assignments. I had my kids do the research. So it says the population on like the census is 8,000, but it's such a transient community with second homes. It's probably a lot bigger than that. There's 4 elementary schools. There's a 6th and 7th grade middle school, and then one for 8th and 9th, and then there's a high school. So it's a nice small community where it's very different from where my kids grew up.
So you guys have been there since when?
We moved here July 8th. We left Chicago June 24th and decided to take a little road trip out west. So we took our time getting out here.
Okay. So you've been there a couple months, nearly a couple months now.
Yeah.
And how has it been during these weeks?
It's been exciting. The emotions are so mixed. I have to say that. I have loved the mountains. Just for me, from that standpoint, my husband said it best. He's like, ever since you've gone to Park City, you've kind of decompressed. Like you're not going like you're doing in Chicago. So for me, it's been great. For the kids, I actually love that they've gained a little bit more independence here. I feel a little bit safer that they could kind of bike around and go play out on the mountains. That's been fantastic. The hard part was kind of starting over, trying to make new friends, and especially watching kids do that. And I still remember my daughter, she has such a tight knit soccer team back in Chicago, loved them. And then we put her into a new soccer team here in Park City. And just watching her, the first couple practices, her walking to the team and just kind of standing off by herself. And I know that that's what everybody goes through. But as a mom watching your daughter do that, it was just heartbreaking for me. But it's just those type of emotions. But I'm trying to tell my kids all of this is a great learning opportunity. We are doing this amazing adventure. So we're always trying to look at the positive side and being grateful for this adventure that we have.
And what was it like to introduce this idea to your kids and sort of work with them on getting used to it and going through this change?
It was actually such a funny, when we first told our kids, let me think here, my first and my third, so a boy and a girl that were 11 and 8, they were like, absolutely not. We've got great friends. I'm not going to leave Oak Park and our families here. My second one, she is like, oh, I love this opportunity. And then she heard the idea of homeschooling and she's like, I'm on board, Mom. My second one, she's a go-getter. So she loves like the idea of mom teaching her, going at her own pace. So she's like, this could be really fun. And so it was a mixed attitude among the 3 kids, the 3 older ones. My 2 younger ones, we knew we didn't have to worry so much about. But then we told them about the cool things we get to do on our adventure. So we were just in Park City for skiing. So we told our son, who was very hesitant since he's the oldest, you know what, you get to go snowboarding in the winter. You're going to get to go mountain biking. You get to go fly fishing. We were telling them all these great outdoor adventures that we have more access to being out here. And so the idea started growing on him. And then as we just started showing more pictures and just all the great fun things we'd be doing. I think that's how we end up selling our kids on this trip.
And what was it like to tell other people in your life? Were friends and family surprised, or what were reactions like?
A lot of our friends were like, we're not surprised you're doing this, but we're surprised of how you're going about it. And their surprise was also excitement and just, wow, that's a cool idea. Because one, we couldn't do it. And the fact that 3 cities in 15 months, that is not something a family of five would typically do. And so they were so supportive because they knew we've been wanting to move out west, especially. So they were excited for the journey for our family. And understandably, the biggest pushback was my family because I was going to be leaving them, and we were such a big part of each other's lives. But then, just talking to our family and letting them know this is something we're doing for us, our immediate family, they completely understood. And my parents have been out; they're going to be coming out again in a couple of weeks, and they are loving Park City, and they could absolutely understand why we decided to make the leap out here.
That's great. And maybe you'd share with us, what are some of the most important things that you and your husband were really looking for out of this experiment?
One, the biggest thing I think for us was we wanted a stronger family bond to strengthen our family unit and just kind of have each other depend on us more. And that was one of our biggest goals. The other goal was just for our kids. They grew up in Chicago, in our neighborhood, and we wanted to show them that there are other great places in this country. And so we wanted them to just appreciate all that was out there and just kind of being grateful about that. A third one, this was one that I was not on board with initially, but that I was like, oh goodness, my husband was right, was this living a simple life. Living in the house we lived in for 11 years, having 5 kids, we ended up accumulating a lot of stuff. And we took this opportunity of this adventure to really just simplify and really just take what was necessary with us on this move. And it was also to show the kids that, we don't need all these materialistic stuff to survive, to enjoy our lives. And what we did was when we sold our house, we ended up selling a lot of our furniture. We are not storing that much stuff. And we told the kids, we're taking our 2 cars, and each one of you gets one travel carry-on luggage and one medium box. And that's all that we're going to be bringing on our trip. And when I initially heard that, I'm like, there is no way this is going to work. But then as we got through the process, I'm realizing, what, this is a good thing that we're doing. It's a great lesson, not just for my kids, but also for me and for us as a family.
So that was really an idea of your husband's, it sounded like.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was like, wait a second, I'm home with 5 kids. I need stuff. And then I was like, then, when you're doing all the packing, you realize, no, I probably really don't.
I've heard from other families too, and it was my own experience when I took a sabbatical, that you start to realize how expensive storage is and start doing the calculations. And it does lead to this simplification that turns out to have some nice benefits later.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, I think about the stuff I have right now in storage, and I haven't seen it for about 3 months here. And I'm still wondering, like, do I need this in 15 months or not? Some of the stuff that I stored. So it'll be interesting when we go back and get all that stuff back.
Yeah. And you guys don't really know where you're ending up yet either.
No. Yeah, no, not at all.
So how do you guys envision making that decision?
You know what? Part of this is going to be gut feeling since we'll be living in the 3 places. But I think it's also just going to be a conversation around the dinner table. Part of the assignments that we're setting for the kids is we want them to provide us with a presentation of what are the pros and cons of each places. And if you had to pick the 3, which one would you pick? And so we will talk with the kids, get their votes, and then my husband and I will talk too, and then we'll just come together. And I have a feeling that we're all going to end up on the same page, but it's going to be very collaborative. And I think that's another actually thing that sold our kids on this adventure is that they are going to be part of the decision process too.
Have you guys ever made big decisions like that before as a family?
No, not really. This is the first one, and I'm excited because oftentimes I feel like we make decisions for our kids for a lot of things that they probably can make the decisions themselves. So this is a great learning opportunity for them. And just to show them that, yes, you are kids, but you are so capable. And I feel like we often take our kids for granted in that sense.
With other families that I've talked to, homeschooling is a really big undertaking. What has your experience been so far?
It is tough. I tell the kids, I don't want to nag you, but I also need you to look at me, not just your mom, but the respect that you also have for a teacher. So when you have an assignment done, I don't want you to say, Mom, can I please have another day on this? So that has been the hard part because I understand, I'm like, oh, it'd be so fun to go out and go mountain biking right now because you've got this opportunity. But you know what? We've got to stick to this structure. I have flexibility for you, but I do want assignments done. So that has been the tricky part, I think, is just to keep your kids on track. And the hard part too is keeping your kids on track and subjects that they're not quite as interested in. So my kids they could easily do math all day. They love it. But when it comes to like vocabulary and reading comprehension, those type of subjects, not quite as interested. So there's a little bit more pushing that I have to do in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Where have you found support and resources for homeschooling?
I actually joined some Facebook groups where they're for homeschooling families. And there's actually a Park City homeschooling Facebook groups, and there's co-ops here. So I haven't quite taken advantage of those yet, but those are definitely, as we get more into like a regular routine for homeschooling, we will definitely be using that as a resource. Like in terms of curriculum, I actually have quite a few friends at homeschool. So they were great in just preparing me what to expect, helping me guide me in the curriculum, how to make sure that my kids are still staying up to speed with where they should be. So homeschooling is a very it's a lot more common and popular than I thought it was going to be. So that has really helped with that part of this trip.
And given the sort of singularity of your guys' sabbatical experiment, I wonder if there's been times where it's kind of felt lonely and where you've been able to find community and support in the overall project of your sabbatical.
It takes a little while when you get into a community to meet friends. It was a little bit lonely in that sense, but what it really has helped us is we wanted to get our kids involved right away. And so putting our kids in different activities, that has been a great way just to meet the local people here to really just kind of figure out, form new friendships. And it does take time, but that has been really helpful for us for sure. I do miss the fact, when we were back home, my kids can just go off and play with friends. We're not quite there yet, so we just moved. And so from that standpoint, I look at my kids and I'm hoping that they're going to get more comfortable with their teammates that they've met or these other kids in their activities so that they can have more of a social structure. And then we actually have been very fortunate too that we've had friends who have friends that live here that have introduced us so that we've been able to have a social life from that aspect too.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So to wrap up our conversation, I have 3 questions for you. The first is, what do you wish you had known before you took your leap?
I wish I probably known of being prepared for the mixed emotions. The journey sounds exciting. You think about all the ups and downs, but you also have to be prepared for some of the kind of lonelier moments, the sad moments, and that's all part of the adventure that you're going to be taking.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to notice and be prepared for. I think that's one of the biggest surprises is that we imagine as soon as we're on our adventure that we'll feel great, but it's really is a transition and like a growth and learning process.
Yes, absolutely.
What was the most unexpected thing that came of your leap so far?
Our number one goal was, what was this going to do to our family? Was it going to make it stronger? And honestly, my husband and I are both of our biggest surprise was how quickly our family bond grew together, how much we enjoyed being together. And we are so excited about that. And I think because you are put into a new place and not knowing anybody, that just kind of forced us to really rely on each other and just realize that our family is always going to be there for each other.
For someone who's thinking of doing something similar, what's one piece of advice you'd offer?
Go ahead and do this, even if you have some hesitation or fear of the unknown or change, because that is something that you can overcome. So do not be afraid of the unknown if this is something you really want to do.
I hear that so much from people, just that encouragement to keep going through with handling all the fears and the logistical problems.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you just don't want to regret it because of fear. That's one of the biggest lessons I want to teach my kids too.
Right. Well, I'm excited to keep up with you guys to hear how your journey and decision goes. And as a next step, what would you like listeners to do?
They can follow our journey. I have a blog that I've started, which is called Every Road is a Memory. And then there's also a Facebook group where we're just posting pictures of our adventures and just the biggest things that we're learning from it. So we'd love if your listeners are interested in that, they can definitely join us. And then also, one of the biggest lessons I have been teaching my kids, and a great way for the experience is part of my entrepreneurial business of teaching kids to be kind and thoughtful. And that is something else that I want to have my kids continue, regardless of where they are, is to kind of have this joy and presence of always just having strong values no matter where you go.
Great. Well, we'll include the links to all of those resources on the show notes. And I just want to thank you again for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun chatting with you about this.
Thank you for listening all the way to the end of today's episode. It's great to have you here. As usual, you can head over to lisahawashi.com for the show notes. You'll find photos of Sittany and her family and their adventure over there, as well as resources and links that she's provided. If you're working on a leap of your own and would like some support, you can reach out to me directly at my website or at Lisa Hawashi on Facebook or on Instagram. You can also join our Leap Like Me community on Facebook, which has others who are also planning their own big leaps and asking questions, trading advice, that sort of thing. It'd be great to have you join us there. A huge thank you to everyone who has left a review or rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. For me, that is so personally meaningful because this really is a work of love for me and a work of service as well. Really wanting to support people out there in taking their own leaps and going on their own adventures in life. That's it for this week's show. Thanks for listening to Leap Like Me.